Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry is the culty church that I joined, and in my third year, I received a prophetic word saying that God was giving me to my ex-husband who ended up being abusive. Next, I wanted to talk about our intimacy because somebody had asked, did I notice anything weird given the fact that I now know that he attempted to grape his ex-girlfriend the month before we got together. So was there anything weird going on in that area that would have raised any red flags? He had told me back in Pennsylvania that he was addicted to corn, despite the fact that he was always bragging about how pure he was, and he liked to hold that over me. But he was addicted to corn, and that was something that he lied about a lot when we were married. So if you remember, my first year revival group pastor was all about authenticity, vulnerability, being honest, and letting people love you where you're at. So I used to tell him, if you watch it, just tell me, let me know. I forgive you. It's okay. I just want open communication. I don't want to feel like anything is being hidden from me. And he would never do that. So he was watching it like the entire time that we were married, which in our personal relationship, everybody has different guidelines in their relationship. But in our relationship, it was a no-go. Like that was something that we were not okay with. So there would be times where I would say, have you watched it recently? And he would say no, and I could tell he was lying, and I'd keep asking, and then he'd be like, okay, fine, yeah. So it was just kind of this ongoing issue that made me feel really hurt. Now, as far as our actual intimacy, it was very boring, and that's so mean. I can't say that. You know what? I'm keeping it in. It's facts. Okay, so it was very standard. It was just normal, okay? But there was all of that verbal abuse still going on during this time. So one way that this would come out is that Ted would call me a whore, and he would like to do this like in the midst of fights to like really jab the knife in. And if you've been following from the beginning, you know that I had a lot of church hurt around this exact topic because of purity culture, because of my second year revival group pastor. So he knew that this is the meanest possible thing that he could say to me. And that did cause a lot of issues with our intimacy because he would call me this and then he would try to be intimate with me that night. And I was like, I low-key don't want you to touch me ever again. So then he would say, well, you need to forgive me because the Bible says to forgive. So I was just like constantly in this state of feeling guilted to sleep with him, even though I was not like super attracted to him. And I also did not feel emotionally safe with him. So that was a big part of our marriage and a big part of the process because he just continued to call me these awful derogatory names. 2 red flags that I wanted to talk about that I really did not pick up on at the time, because remember, he's telling me that he waited until he was 30 years old to have sex for the first time and that he is very pure, other than this corn addiction, right? Nothing like in real life. So I thought that that was true. Now, remember, Sarah told us that apparently back in Pennsylvania, he was addicted to strip clubs. I never knew this. I found this out like a couple months ago. So this is news to me, but apparently he was addicted to strip clubs, and I had caught him numerous times not going to work. He would say he'd be going to work and he would disappear for hours as if he was working. I now believe that he was likely going to strip clubs throughout our entire marriage, and honestly, maybe he was doing more than just going to strip clubs. So the first red flag is he was an Uber driver at the time. That is how we were paying our rent along with background work. And there was one time that he came home and there was a text message in his phone from a woman. And I was like, what's this? I think it said like, oh, this is Crystal. And I was like, who's Crystal? And he told me, oh, well, she got in my car earlier. I drove her here. She lives in our complex, and she was wondering if I could be her personal Uber driver from now on because I made her feel so safe and feel so comfortable. So I just gave her my direct number. That way, like, Uber doesn't take a percentage. I felt really uncomfortable with that. And, in hindsight, knowing everything that I know, who knows who Crystal is? I don't really know. Red flag number 2, there was a time when he came home and guys, there were scratches down his back. And I was like, what's that? And he said that he had no idea how he had got it. And I pressed and was really stressed out. But you have to realize, like, he was not the player type. So it was easy for me to just think, okay, well, he doesn't like have another girlfriend. Like, I just could not see a world where that was the case, because he was always talking about how in love with me he was. So in my mind, the idea that he would cheat on me, and also just like sleep with some random woman after he had already waited 30 years to have sex for the first time with his bride or whatever, seemed unlikely. So I pushed that away, but obviously scratches down his back, not great. And also, going back to him calling me a whore and calling me all of these awful names, I have since spoken to Sarah, and she has said that he was also verbally abusive and would say those types of words to her as well. And then not only that, the person who dated him after me, so I'm going to call her Daisy, she reached out to me when I did my Did I Marry a Psychopath series, and she told me her dating experience with Ted, and I'm going to talk about that too, but just know he likes to call all women these names. So next, I'm going to talk about how abusers love to ruin big events for you, and the time that he ruined my stand-in job for me by the worst assault to that point. Follow for the next part.